Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the tie to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Hey, we're back. We are just crushing live today. I'm going to tell you why, because it's fun and it's exciting. And you're going to be awesome people who are doing some really cool stuff. Today, our next guest here is Erik Wolf, and it's not of the Wolf Kitchens and Stoves, which are fantastic little red knot little bastards. I'm sure he wishes he was that guy, because that guy is definitely on a yacht somewhere, probably with a really good kitchen. But instead, he's actually the founder of Estound. They're a marketing leadership agency. So you maybe never heard of what that is, but they are solving the big marketing problems before you go and hire a bunch of people or an agency. So this is a big problem in marketing, is hiring too fast, not understanding what the problem is or how to solve it. And that just creates a bunch of madness and a lot of wasted time, money, and a lot of other problems too of brand recognition, like a lot of things with your brand and other stuff. So we'll get into all that kind of stuff too. If this is your first time ever seeing this, thank you so much for being here or listening. It's our mission to help entrepreneurs get better at entrepreneurship. I'm a firm believer that one of the hardest parts of entrepreneurship is marketing in particular, because you could have the best processes to have the most effective, really ran company, and you could be stellar at sales. But if no one knows what you do or who you are, or they can't buy into what your brand is because they have never seen it, you're not selling a thing. So marketing is very difficult, and we focus a lot on that in this channel because it's something that a lot of people need help with. Only kind of call to action ever ask. Take a moment. If you like the kind of content or you want to see more, just go to youtube.com at Never Been Promoted and hit the subscribe. And if you're really cheeky or just saucy, grab the little bell so you get alerted when we get some new stuff or go live. If you want to come on the show, you could hit me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/n/Thomas Helfrich. And if you hate the show, you can also send me some hate mail, but I don't think you will. If you're listening to the podcast, please give us a review, a good one, 5-star, if you can do it. If you don't have 5 stars, let me know why it's not 5 stars and I'll improve it. But thank you so much for that. Enough shameless promotion. Let's bring in Erik. Erik, how are you?
Well, hey, I'm good.
I love it. That beard, I'm so jealous. This is 9 weeks for me right here.
I was clean shaven last Tuesday.
That's good. That's good. The best part, you say, listen, but the funny thing is I don't grow hair on my waist. Like, here, this is all bare. Like, be like, that's not the case. That's just all hair.
If I could keep more of it on the top of my head, I would. But this is what
that's the requirement, right? You can't lose hair if you have hair all over your face and body. Like, that just seems not fair. Like, it's like you like really like if I lose my hair, it would match. It would be fine, but you can't. I'm sorry, you can't go bald. You're gonna have to get we have diverted. Erik, Estound. You guys, I've never met a marketing leadership agency, and I love that kind of term. And so before we get into that a bit, I do want to ask you an icebreaker question.
Oh, go for it.
If you were a ghost, who is it you'd haunt?
Oh my God.
You can only pick one, too.
So, and I have spent way too much time thinking about stuff like this because I would love to have a superpower. And if I could haunt somebody, I mean, you've got like the obvious answers, your parents, your ex-wife, those are, those to me are a little bit too easy. I think I'd like to haunt some former clients and just, be like, coming in the window and making the drapes move and say, I told you it would be like this, but we'll see.
That's a nice answer. I'm going to pivot now. You said about that's another one of the icebreakers. What would your superpowers be?
I've got to go with flying.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would just be cool.
It would be so cool, and no traffic. I would just get places. It would be magical. No TSA.
Oh, they'd get involved. Like an F-16 by your face.
There'd be like a booth you have to go through
in the air.
Yeah.
And F-16 escorts you back home. Like, hey, listen.
Hey, that water bottle is full. I'll take that.
Right, because you have to buy the ones on the other side of that little thing here, because we couldn't possibly test that water bottle for anything. Right.
I've actually I'm not proud of this, but I've actually, and I live in Colorado, so we all walk around with like the metal water bottles. We have to. They don't let
Right.
you stay here if you don't. I've legitimately lost like 3 of those things at TSA because I forgot to empty it out, or I was in too much of a rush, and they were like, and I'd be like, here, let me dump it. I'll go. They're like, no, you got to go to the back of the line. And I'm like, okay, so I'm getting a new water.
Yeah, like if you're gonna like make me dump it,
Just
like
dump it
just
anyway.
anyway, I would be like, I guess I'm chugging it. Hold on.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, all right.
TSA has a special like room full of water bottles that I have provided them.
Oh, I'm sure that the team's like, oh, this is a Yeti. Yeah, you'll have to go to the back of the line.
Yeah, right.
Oh, it's a Stanley. Yeah, you're gonna have to go leave the airport and come back. So, or we can take it from you. The if I go to Colorado, I thought you guys were saying you guys walk around with gummies in your pocket. I thought that was the answer.
Some
Turns out
people do. I'm not that's not my particular vice, but yeah, and actually it's not even that special anymore. So much of the country has got like legalized stuff now, so we're not
but I
we're
feel
not
like it's like
special.
it's like you guys are like the Vegas of cannabis.
There you go.
You're the
We
first
were
to kind of really have it,
the,
like,
the
right?
the the first and the best.
That's right. All right, so let's dive into a little bit. So
Yeah.
a marketing leadership agency. So maybe give us, give me the pitch on that just for a second, and then back up kind of how you got there. Like, give me enough history about you and the
Yeah.
organization to do it.
So where I come into this, and the idea of a marketing leadership agency is based on the notion that, and we work with a lot of small and mid-size companies, and when you're a mid-market business, you tend to not have a marketing executive. That role generally belongs to somebody else. You might have a mid-level marketing manager, somebody who is out of college for a few years, something like that. You might have a VP of sales or a VP of sales and marketing, but generally, if you got a VP of sales and marketing, that's somebody who got the job because they were your best salesperson, not because they were a terrific marketer. So usually you've got somebody that's running marketing while also having a more valuable role at the company. So their real value is sales, but they're also in charge of marketing. You're the CEO, you're running the company, but you're also in charge of marketing. And so where we come in is we close that leadership gap because you need that executive advice. It's like any other function on your team. It's why you have a chief technology officer. It's why you have a chief financial officer. You've got to have that leadership on your team in order to actually solve the big problems. And the big problems are, how are we going to sell more stuff?
Yep.
What are we going to budget to do it? What's going to be the stuff that gets us there? How are we going to make a connection with our marketplace? There are all of these big questions that a lot of us skip over. And basically we go right to, you know what, this year we're going to buy a lot of SEO. And this is the year that we're going to do a new website. We had this logo for 6 years. I think it's time for a new one. And we just go and buy stuff, and we don't really think about what it's for, what it's really going to do for us. And we end up basically tripping over our own feet. We spend a lot of time and money on marketing, and we don't get what we should have gotten.
Yeah. Well, here's the scenario, right? It's Q4. You're looking at your numbers. You've had a decent year. You're like, hey, we can pay tax on that, or we can make an investment. And what happens are people like, let's go invest in the website rebuild, because we've been
Right.
talking about that forever. Because if you build it, will come.
Right.
Doesn't just cost money. Doesn't typically produce more things. SEO might be one of the things you might look at. Agreed. You're like, let's start that investment over the next year or two, because it takes time, as we've heard.
Well, the funny thing about SEO in particular versus a lot of other types of marketing tactics is that people have a very basic misunderstanding about what SEO is actually for. And
Please dive in, because there's so much nonsense with this. It's particularly what people sell versus what you should buy.
Correct.
Take a tangent on that one for a moment, if you like.
Yes, I can do that.
Oh, floor is yours, sir.
So with SEO, what happens is is that what we're buying, when we're shopping for SEO as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, what you think you're buying is more leads. You think that what you're buying is that I'm going to spend this money and I'm going to rank higher on Google, and that's going to make my phone ring. And increasingly, unless you are a very, transactional, very urgent sort of a business, the example I like to give is the 24-hour plumber. 24-hour plumbers, yeah, absolutely. You're going to get business off of Google. That's a thing that's going to be that's going to help your business. If you're a managed service IT provider, if you make software, if you are a consultant, it is not a good expectation to have that an investment in organic search engine optimization is going to produce a visible lift in your business in a reasonable amount of time. What Google does for those types of businesses is it's an awareness builder. What it does is it enables people to find out that we exist, and it gives us the opportunity to maybe form a connection with them. But what it does not do for most businesses today is create that environment. It's not a replacement for advertising. It's not a replacement for networking or for email marketing or for any of the other things that we do as business owners. It's basically an awareness builder. It's a way of putting a targeted billboard on a very important website, just like we might put a targeted billboard on a very important building in our city. It's
well, I look at the SEO of there's two parts to it, right? People are selling you something that they've gotten people and the buyers have gotten okay that they know it takes a long time. So when you're selling something like that, you're so excited because you're like, it costs you $1,000, costs you $3,000 a month.
right.
Are you ready to make that investment? So even if you've made it for 12 months, it doesn't work out. The company selling it may have done all the right things. And what you describe as the problem, it's not really lead generation. It's more brand awareness. And additionally, it's also experience. So if you have somebody who's coming in and they are thinking of buying, they see all this content. That's not SEO. It's more of like, hey, it's a trust builder, right? And if you've written it for SEO, all keyword, it'll read like shit and actually hurt you. So are you creating content for the purposes of being found in Google, or are you creating content for the purposes when someone checks you out, you really know what the hell you're doing? And those don't always align from what people sell you. So anyway, that being said, that's one of the problems you saw coming back up of that rabbit hole, is that people make investments into their company without fully understanding the capabilities of what marketing can or can't do, and which levers you should be pulling. Should you be sending emails? Should you be just doing social media? Or if you're a plumbers, you're selling to plumbers, they're probably not on LinkedIn. They might be on Instagram possibly, but how do you go do that, right? So to dive into that a little bit too, because I think some of the problems you saw are.
I do not really want to see his Instagram. Whatever that guy is doing for his customers, it's not something that I need to see. But legitimately, what we need, is basically what marketing is here to do. At the end of the day, is that we're here to help make the goals of the business possible. And so if you've got a goal for your business that you're going to increase your top line revenue, if you've got a goal for your business that you're going to increase the lifetime value of your customers, if you've got a goal for your business that you want to improve retention or whatever it is, if it's related to revenue, marketing is here to support that. And just like anything else, it's a different solution for every problem. Mm-hmm. Every organization is different. We have also a lot of conflict between, hey, we've got sales and we've got marketing. So where does marketing end and where does sales begin? How do we leverage the talents of the people in our sales department to their highest potential?
Right.
And so marketing is here to solve all those problems. And what we want to do is, rather than just buy solutions. What we would really love to be doing is starting with that goal and working backwards with that business leader, with that CEO, or with that VP of sales and marketing, and saying, okay, how is it that we're going to get here? What do we need to fix? What's going to tell us, how are we going to know that we're successful? And what are the levers, to your point, that we can pull in order to create those results?
So an ideal customer for you is not a solopreneur typically.
Typically not. I will say we have worked with some smaller ventures and things like that, but really an ideal company for us, the folks that I really love working with, ideally is I love working with business to business. We also do some B2C, but I love B2B, and I think that we've got a real feel for B2B that a lot of folks don't have. So I love B2B, and the companies that I really love working with are those companies that are mature, that have experienced that growth, but they kind of capped off, and they've discovered that on their own power they could only get so far. What can we do to use marketing as a tool? Because marketing is really one of the last things to mature in a business.
Right. First thing you do, last thing to mature, for sure.
Yeah. So let's take that. Let's take that company, and let's see if we can bust them out of that plateau that they're on, break that ceiling, and get them to the next level. And that's work that I find really satisfying, is taking those businesses that have sort of reached that ceiling, and it's time to bust through.
So take me through your own journey a bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure you didn't start off here, because
No.
so every marketing agency goes through a thing, right? Like you become a marketer because you're frustrated with wherever you were, and this is where our careers go to
Yes.
change. And then you get in and you're doing something you were trained on, and then you see that doesn't work, and then you cry in the corner. You do it because you're an agency owner. Every agency owner's cried, and there's a corner in their house they've cried. They didn't tell anyone about it, but
It's that corner.
it's that one. You have I have my corner.
Yes, I've got my little sob corner.
Right. I'm actually thinking about putting a massage chair there if I could ever get successful enough, because then I may not leave my office.
Good idea.
Like the lay down little eggs. I saw one at Costco the other day, and I'm like, I could cry in that really nicely. Anyway, so you have that, and then you land in it. Then you get the aha moment, which is wiped your tears away, and you're like, when did that happen to you?
So for me, where I came into it is that I was a corporate marketing director, and I wasn't going anywhere in my job. It was a good company, and I had been there for 5 years. I'd accomplished a lot of cool stuff that I'm still proud of, but I wasn't going to go any place else in that company. I had reached my personal apex, and so I said, okay, it's time to do something else. And I applied for jobs, and I had it in my head that I'd been working for a company that grew from about 80 million to 120 million while I was there. And I said, you know what, I'd like to work at a smaller company. Most marketers take that and say, okay, now I'm going to go to Coca-Cola, or I'm going to go to a big brand. And for me, I said, no, I'd like to see if I can make a big difference at a small company. And I was having terrible luck at getting hired by small companies, because I went through the process several times, and what happened was that people were sort of saying, okay, we like you, but it turns out that we're just not ready to hire this role. And I had interviewed with my last interview was with an IT company, and it was really going well. I thought, this is the one. And what happened is that I didn't hear from him for 6 weeks, and I was like, okay, here we go again. And so my aha moment at that point was when I called him up and I said, hey, how about this? You're not gonna. I'm getting the vibe that you don't want to hire me to be your VP of marketing right now. You're realizing everything that entails, and you're feeling a little gun shy, and I get that. So what if I was your agency instead? And he said, I really like that idea. And so suddenly I was the owner of an agency, and that's where it started. And my first two projects, I got that one, and then I had a website, and that was more of a strategic thing when we were starting, because we were really trying to rebuild everything that they were doing from a marketing perspective. He recognized that they had a gap, and so I had this one really strategic project, and I was digging in there. And my second project that I sold was a website for a construction company, and it was 2006. So there were a lot of companies out there, even decent sized companies, that still didn't have websites. So did that, and where I accidentally put myself was kind of at the crossroads between being an agency that makes things with their brains, and an agency that makes things with their hands. And it's taken me a really long time, but what I've realized is that my brain is a better tool than my hands.
Yeah.
And I think that we're leaning into that, and really trying to work on the strategic side.
I love that. As an agency owner as well, in the last 3 years, we've gone from a content creation company, just a autobiography a little bit,
Yeah.
with access to OpenAI's beta before it was 2 years before it was out, right? And so we're going to create content. We have such an advantage. We're going to get so far ahead. And then as every release came out from that, you're like, oh man, that's a terrible model. That's going to be commoditized so fast. So you pivot away from that, and like you said, you start building things maybe a little bit smarter. Like we built a strategic kind of, what do you call it, a practice or methodology or framework for using LinkedIn, right? So, but then you look at it and you go, well, that's not really marketing. That's really business growth, and how to use one of the social media. So we've even pivoted to that. And so when you get down, when you're talking about using your brain, it's like, I look at it like, now as another one from we're looking at, like, well, where I'm actually adding value is instantly relevance, moving to verifying other marketing agencies' ability to deliver, because that's even a harder problem that every agency owner that's any good faces. The ones that aren't good make it up. They are a major problem to that issue. And so anyway, what you described it from an entrepreneurial journey is you're going to need to make, some call it evolutions. Some of these are just straight out pivots of where does your personal brand, your personal capabilities, and then your team's capabilities best line up for the kind of style of company you want to build. Like, so if you like thinking, you're going to hate after a while building stuff. Like, it's just not going to be who you are. And
And yeah,
so I'll be quiet. Just like, I love that you've done that, because it's so true.
like trying to, we make stuff, and we try to get back to the strategy part, and it started feeling to me that once you get your hands dirty and you're making stuff, it's all about that. It's hard to get back to the strategic part, and that part where we're problem solving, and that part
Yep.
where we're once we were making stuff, it kind of felt like we were always making stuff, and it was hard to bring the client back to, but wait, we've still got planning to do. We made this thing, but now we have to make it work for the business. What are we going to do with this website now, or what are we going to do with this content now, or this social whatever that we're working on.
Fill the blank in, right?
Yeah, how does it relate back to the success of the overall business? And it was really hard to get back there. And for me, I feel like, hey, there's a lot of places now. When I came into it in 2006, making things was still relatively hard. Nobody knew. Google was still relatively new. Nobody knew exactly how to make that work.
Right.
Online advertising was also very.
Oh,
Where did I go? Hey,
there you go. we had a little disconnect there. You were saying online advertising back then was a little bit
Online
nascent.
advertising was very immature. Nobody knew what to do with that. Nobody knew how to build a website. The graphic design tools were still like, a little bit lofty for some folks. It was difficult to.
Yeah, still is. Oh, we're losing you. Okay, get a little disruption. It's okay. It's probably my
So
kids downloading stuff home. They're probably like,
there you
full
go.
4K Netflix, every one of them.
Uh,
Listen, so when you're doing this, let me just advance this so I kind of bring it back to original piece.
oh yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
you're an entrepreneur out there, you're trying to understand where you add value, because your differentiators for you aren't going to be in the build. It's going to be
Yeah.
in the strategy.
It's relatively easy to make stuff in
Right.
today's world, but it's not easy to actually create a strategy that's going to generate results. And that's the part that I think that my team and I bring to the table that is hard to find.
I agree with you. And so I like that you focus on that specific consultative problem first. Because it also, I mean, from a perspective of just from a business perspective, right? You're positioned yourself more niche, but you have also positioned yourself to a bigger company where when people are buying your services, they're not personally attached to the money. So,
Right.
when you're a solopreneur, it's same suit, different pocket. So like, oh, I hear this sometimes from friends, like, oh, you can just write it off as a business expense. I'm like, well, that might save me 20% if I wasn't audited or something else, right? like there's but it's the same suit. I could just pay myself that too and create the same expense, right? But
Right.
when it's a company and you're funded, or it's larger, they don't look at it as a personal attachment. I could pay myself more. They look at it more of, can I make this investment? And they're more willing to make it if they truly believe that they're going to get the value from it. So I love how you've done that from position wise, and it gives you a differentiator in the same structure.
Hey, we grow by investing profits. We can't have both. If we want to grow, we have to invest our profits in our growth. And so a larger business is really willing to have that conversation versus a solopreneur, because like you said, it's just taking money from one pocket, putting it in a different pocket. Money that I pay other people is money that I see is not coming home to my family. And so
Right.
so and that's real. That's not a perception. So yeah, that mid-sized business is really our bread and butter, where they're wanting to grow.
Well, exactly. So I think if I always try to find these entrepreneurial lessons in this stuff and what you're doing, and you have to look at part of what you make in a year as an investment of, how do I take my company for the next, how do we get 5% more efficient? How do we get 5% more sales? Whatever it is, like the number, and be realistic with the investment level you have. And when you're solving, and that's where you guys come in. So
Yeah.
so in my opinion, like, sales drives everything, but a salesperson can't sell anything if they can't get a lead. And if they're, and this is where people sometimes mix this up. I don't think salespeople should be getting leads as part of their role. If they can do it, that's awesome. I think the marketing should front some of those leads. The salespeople should close deals. And so I think there's a sales marketer that sits somewhere in between on smaller organizations. Maybe have a conversation. Can we talk about that a little bit? Because in a
Yeah,
small
yeah.
organization, you can't afford it all. So how do you bridge the gap between the person who's getting leads versus the one who needs to be closing? Because it's usually not the same skill set.
No, it's not the same skill set. And we would now. So we used to call those people business development people. Now in some organizations they call them growth marketers, and that's the person that's going to be really working on LinkedIn, working on HubSpot, working on list building, working on really doing that outreach and turning and creating art out of that outreach. Um, that there's sort of like this in between part. So the difference between sales and marketing um, is essentially that marketing is good at the parts of the process, because there's only one buying process. There's only one, basically we're all on the same path. If I'm buying something, there are things that happen in that buying process. Marketing is effective at the parts of the process where communication is one to many. where I've got that bullhorn, so to speak, and I'm blasting out that message. Sales is really good at the part where it's one to one. Sales is designed for one to one communication. But then we've got that kind of murky middle ground now, more than we ever did before, and the reason is because of things like online, because of social media, because of all of the various things that we can do now through our CRMs that we couldn't do before. And so in that murky space, we've got to do both some marketing work and some of that business development work. And a lot of organizations are calling that growth marketing now, but that's a really essential piece of the puzzle, because that's really where we make that transition from the one to many to the one to one. And if we can get that middle ground really, really well, that's, people say, where's the machine that's going to actually like churn this stuff? A lot of that happens in that middle ground where sales and marketing meet. And so
Yeah,
that's the area that we got to get really good at.
And that middle ground is so important. So I like to look at my own past sometimes to do this, because I've been through some of this with, we really help people with LinkedIn right now, right? Like our methodology, we have a system for how to use LinkedIn. The challenge with that is I can't advertise. I can't use the word LinkedIn on Wires News. I can't do much with it, actually. It's like, so the methodology we have actually presumes you can't advertise when we do it. So, but I look at that as a business, it's like, man, there's a limit. There's not a capital machine that, it's a really good methodology for small businesses, let's say $1 million to or less, because you could leverage what we do very well without using advertising and execute. But if you want to go from that, if you want a bigger play, I'd say it's probably a strategy your teams can use and incorporate it with others. But when I looked at that, I go, hey, listen, that's interesting, because that middle ground now is, I can't hire that middle ground because of how we do it. So I was like, all right, so let's look at some different services that we could use advertising, that we could do this. And if you're looking at your business and you have something that's ancillary, or you can't advertise either because you don't have the trademark rights, or B, it's too expensive, you have to look at some other ways to create that capital machine. Otherwise, your growth is going to be stunted where it's at. And I think this is where people hire trying to solve the problem, and they spend tons of money. And the bigger problem is the actual services or providing what you're doing. So maybe you've seen something different, but I see this personally in my own. I know I'm like, man, I can't get out of this cycle unless I do something different. Anyway, so maybe take a few moments on talking about that problem, because it's where people get stuck.
Yeah, there's that space where as an entrepreneur, you start to feel like I'm the only one that can do this part. And perhaps there's a level to your business where if you make it big enough, that's the point where you don't have to do all that stuff anymore, because you've got the brand recognition and some other things that are doing some of that work for you, and you've got more people that recognize you as the person to talk to, whether you're the one that's talking or not. Before we get to that point, the question is, okay, and this is a conversation that I have with a lot of my clients, is okay, right now, whether it's going to be this way forever or not, right now the magic is in you. And so how can we scale you in the most effective way possible without making you miserable?
Yeah.
How can we create the most you possible with the least pain for you? And so for folks like, I would say me and you, and being in similar positions, for me, it's a lot of speaking. It is LinkedIn work. There are some parts of LinkedIn work that people can help me with. People can manage my meetings for me. People can drive Sales Navigator for me. People can help me, lay it out so that at the end of the day, I'm essentially a button pusher.
Right. Show up to meeting guy is what I talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Show up to meeting guy.
And that's terrific. That makes my life a lot easier, and it makes my ability to do these things a lot better, and it makes me a little bit more scalable. And so finding the things that we can use to create that scale for a business leader that is, for one reason or another, sort of relegated to being in that role of being that face. There's a lot of ways that we can make that. Actually, it's interesting that podcasting is one of those ways that
Yeah.
you can scale your ability as the person that's got to be the face. People are willing to talk to you on a podcast that might not be willing to talk to you if you just call them on the phone randomly.
That is so true. So for you, like, right, like, you go through this idea that you have to solve the big problems. Right now, maybe just pick one. What's the one problem, if people listening out there, that you're facing? Take a pause before you go. You're about to go do this. Here's the problem. You're about to go do this or this. This is when you should call me. What is that problem, and what are they about to go do?
So a lot of times, they've made an assumption, and something looks or sounds really, really good. And yeah, it can be something like SEO, like we've discussed, but a lot of times it's actually a customer or a type of customer that we're about to go all in on. Really good example is that I've got a client that sells. They make parts that get used in other machines and things like that. And they've got three primary audiences that they sell to. Audience one is basically other contract manufacturers. They do jobs for those other companies that they can't do themselves. They sell to original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, who are basically making a product and selling that product, and they sell to defense and aerospace. And they really thought that the money, that the next level of their business was in how can we grow our defense and aerospace business. They were really feeling like that's it. But then we kind of took that and broke it down, and we were trying to figure out, okay, when you guys sell, where does the value come from for you? And I'm going to skip the math here, but really what we figured out is that where this company makes the most money is in producing more products. It's not in having more customers. The value comes from the part that they make and how many times that part gets ordered. And so what we discovered is that out of the three audiences that they serve, while the defense sounded really sexy, it's actually the least profitable for them. They create the least lifetime value on every part that they make for defense than for either of their other audiences. And it turns out that really the gold mine for them is original equipment manufacturers. And so very quickly, it was 3 times, multiple of 3 on lifetime value for OEMs versus the defense and aerospace. And so very quickly, the discussion shifts from, hey, how do we get more aerospace, to, hold on, how do we maximize our business with OEM? How do we get more of them into our portfolio? And it's an entirely different question. But once we broke down that assumption, it turns out that we were about to spend a lot of time and money doing something that was going to be highly ineffective.
Well, you also had something that is you kind of just, you had data. They knew where their revenue is, and not even so much. So lifetime value, I'm not a big fan of that number, because I'm more of a fan of the lifetime gross profit of a customer, because you could make, like you said, a ton of money on somebody from a revenue standpoint, but your margin might be so small, it's so risky, as opposed to one higher margin, need more volume or some, but you had data. So,
yeah, we use the gross for lifetime value, because same thing. It's gotta make you money. That's where the value part is, versus say like lifetime revenue or lifetime sales. So we're looking at that profit, and it just turns out that if you understand, and they were looking at this, we had to say, hey, let's break this down and let's actually look at it. What's the difference between selling to this person or this person? We found out there's a huge difference.
Yeah, well, and the problem I think a lot of companies have with marketing, and we face it too, is the bigger companies think of marketing sometime in terms of brand awareness, with the idea that leads to other things. So there's more strategy involved. And then smaller companies, I find, tied marketing directly to revenue sales. And meaning, like, I don't see the return on that marketing. But knowing that you and I both know downstream attribution and brand awareness, there's so much more to that, right? It's like your website, your use cases, how you dress in your LinkedIn post or picture, right? Like
Right.
all that stuff starts mattering more on a smaller company than it does even a bigger one, because it's just there's a trust factor. Uh, when you come into a company, though, what are some of the first kind of metrics or KPIs you're looking for to assess like what's going to matter most to that company, based on size, or is there other factors? Because that determines a lot of what you can or can't even look at to solve.
So the first thing that we're looking at typically is what is it that you're actually looking to achieve? Because for some companies that we go to, what they're looking to achieve is they're looking to say add a new product line or serve a new market that they've never been, like basically expansion. Some companies are looking for top line revenue. Other companies are looking for better client retention, or so there's a um, there's a lot of different things that a company could want in from their marketing at any given moment. And so we start by trying to figure out, like, okay, and in working with the business owner, what is that thing that you want? What's the result that you're looking for? What does success look like to you? And then let's work from there. Because I'm going to, and some businesses just say, like, I think the brand awareness is our problem. And so we'll break that down and we'll look at, okay, well, where are we on Google? Where are we with the website? What advertising channels are available to us that that are going to help us with that? And then how can we measure what the results are? And so doing that kind of a project is going to be fundamentally different than somebody who says, hey, listen, what I really need is to grow my top line revenue by 10%.
Yeah. And well, sometimes the motivation is different, right? So I need to grow my
Yeah.
revenue because my bonus is tied to
Uh,
that. versus, or I need to grow it just because that's the number one thing shareholders are looking at right now, or something.
here's the one thing that people forget all the time. Here's my B2B sales tip for the day, is that a lot of us forget that our customer, if you're selling B2B, our customer isn't a company, our customer is a person. It's that person that's signing the contract or that's writing the check or that we're sitting across the table from in the conference room. And that person needs something from this. We've all heard the story about, nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM.
Mm.
Same thing. That person that's sitting across the table from you, maybe they do care about their bonus. Maybe they care about the fact that that if they do a really good job at this project, that they're going to get a promotion or a raise. Maybe they're afraid that if the project doesn't go well, that they're going to get fired.
Yeah.
Understand, figuring out why hiring you is a good career move for that person sitting across from you is such a huge key for B2B sales. And it's something that people forget about all. It's like, oh no, it's about features and benefits. And it's about, we're going to save the company money and well, but what are you going to do for me? I'm the one that's sitting here.
You will, when people hire, especially in bigger companies, your brand matters so much because of that, never fired for IBM. If you're not a huge agency or you're or you're a company or whatever it is, like you better be really good at what you do, right? And so, and specifically niche, because that helps your marketing so much. And I don't know how much times I've ran into this where I have customers where, like, they talk about what they do and who their customers are, and I'm hearing it. It's like, hey, it's all this type of industry, and it's like, it's whatever 50-year-olds, and I'm like, but then they're talking about all the things they want to go do, and I'm like, why not just focus on that? Like you're a solopreneur and you got grandiose ideas, but like add another 8 of those customers a year, and keep them. And like you're on a path to a 7-figure business just on that little niche. And they're like, no, I want to do that. I'm like, oh, okay.
And you might actually be happier is the other thing.
Definitely going to be happier. Less stressed. No question about that. So just conscious of time here. So who is it? Like, I always want to make sure, I think you said it, but just be clear, like, who is it you want to meet? And how should they do that for you?
Hey, if you've got questions about marketing and you run a mid-market B2B services, consulting, IT, professional services, anything in that milieu, that wheelhouse, I would love to talk to you.
Yeah. Do you guys work a lot with bigger ticket SaaS too? Is that the IT space for you?
No, we don't work a lot with SaaS. Have in the past, and actually, it's a really fun business. We work with a lot of companies that are doing, so IT companies, great example. They're selling managed services to 200-person businesses. That's a great example. We've got manufacturing firms that we're working with that are selling B2B. We love all of that. We haven't done a ton with SaaS.
Well, and the reason I ask is someone here's IT or technology, they sometimes associate that with like a software as a service product, as opposed to,
Right.
we keep the lights on, we keep, things up to date. Like, and that's what you guys mean by IT, is a managed service. And you're definitely on the service side. Now, I think that's important because direct to customer, B2C product stuff, small transaction, high volume stuff is, you're telling me that services is where you guys rock it for people. So you understand that market.
I love service marketing. I love B2B marketing. We do other stuff too, but if it's me and I get to choose, I'm choosing that.
Yeah, definitely stay there, because nothing worse is an agency of getting out of bounds. You're like, oh boy, where are we? Going to step on a landmine here any moment. I can feel it. Thank you, by the way, Erik, for coming.
I appreciate this. This has been a lot of fun.
Let me ask you one final question. Maybe
Yeah.
if there's a question I should have asked you and I didn't, what would that question have been?
God, I don't know. I wasn't thinking about that.
Well, no one is. That's why we ask it.
No one is. It was definitely a pop quiz. I would say that the one thing that you didn't ask me was how, and it'll have to be a mystery now. How do you actually make decisions about how you prioritize the marketing efforts? Because you got this list of stuff. How do you actually work that out? And we can, maybe another time, maybe over coffee.
I'm going to ask you a question. How
Okay.
do you prioritize things that are marketing decisions? What's the short answer on that?
The short answer is you start with the items that you have to do. That's overhead. We've got to do our social media every month. We've got our blog post every month. We've got all of these kind of cadence marketing things. So essentially that's overhead. And so we've got to examine that. We've got to figure out, what it takes to complete the overhead, and then what's left. And so in terms of our resources, humans, time, money, how do we make decisions on what to do with the time that's left, where people get things kind of haywire when we say, well, no, everything's important. And it's like, well, no, that's not true. There's certain things that are going to be more important than other things. And so let's make sure that with limited resources that we're doing those first, and that we're all on the same page about what's important, because that's where a lot of things get crisscrossed, is when what I think the priority item is different than what you think the priority item is. And we both end up unhappy.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And that's, that prioritization is sometimes a hard talk. So I think any businesses you're thinking through that, if you're struggling with that priority as well, of where you really should focus your time, they all feel important. That is a perfect candidate to go have a conversation with someone like Erik, because you just, to me, that's like, oh, you're about to waste money and time because you don't know.
Exactly.
And that could be a brief, that could be a 30-minute conversation with you of, listen, definitely for sure, these are less important than those. And here's why.
can,
Like that'd be an intro call that I would take of like, all right, cool. And then they're going to call you in for sure. But if you're struggling with what to do or you're getting mixed messages, like from your marketing sales leaders, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. We should be in conferences. We should do live events. We need more posts. And then you just feel like I have no freaking idea. And it doesn't seem like any of them actually do either. That's when you call a pro in to kind of help put the guardrails on, because you will spend way more and lose way. Two things: you'll spend more for sure, just pure cash gone, than if you had a strategy and a consultant in place. And second, you just lost all the revenue opportunities of being focused on what would have made money. And so that's a double whammy for your business. So now you have less investment to go do better things with. Anyway, Erik, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to put you in the blue room since it's behind me, and I'll be back. There's no cookies in there anymore. I ate them all. So, sorry.
I wanted to get.
You have them all over. Do you have that problem when you eat? Someone's got to be like, "Hey, here," and you got to.
Yeah, it happens, but I'm just saving stuff for later. It's cool.
Yeah. You don't want to get eggs in there. It'll smell after a
couple days. No, that's a no.
It's like a.
Yeah.
I'll be right back, man. Thanks for Erik for joining. Erik Wolf, founder and CEO of Estound, a marketing leadership agency, high strategy, guys. I would definitely reach out to Erik if you did have those questions, right? Of where should I spend time? What should I do? Like it's worth a conversation with somebody. It's amazing sometimes what you can learn, like 30-minute window too, just with somebody who knows what they're doing. If this is your first time or and you made it to here, thank you, by the way, for listening. I hope you come back. And if you got a story to tell or you have some feedback, connect with me on LinkedIn and shoot me a note. LinkedIn.com/n/Thomas Helfrich for those who are listening. And if you go to youtube.com @neverBeenPromoted, that's where you can subscribe, put the notifications on. And if you love the podcast, please give it a 5-star and say something nice about it. That'd be great. Guys, get out there, go unleash your entrepreneur, get out there, cut the ties, all the stuff that's holding you back. And let's go get some more entrepreneurs in the world. Thank you for listening.